Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this June Idea Lab. As we've mentioned, we will be recording this. And so if you have some colleagues or some other friends that after you listen to this, you think would benefit from our discussion, please send them to our YouTube channel. I think because of this pandemic, we've got close to over 20 videos that have been seen many, many times by lots of people. And so very excited to have that new function and keep a lot of these great talks in prosperity for others to learn from. The topic today, we're talking about Google Ads. And I was really excited when Taylor reached out to me to talk about this. I've used Google Ads in a couple of other nonprofits, and I think Taylor's going to talk a little bit about why that is easier maybe for nonprofits than for-profits. But it was really a game changer for us once we started and we understood more and more about how it worked, the keywords and many of those elements. It generated a lot of business for us. And so why don't we get started? I just want to introduce to you Taylor Rogers from Footsteps Marketing, and I'll let you take it from there, Taylor.
Awesome, thank you. Great, so I just wanted to give a little rundown about myself and about Footsteps. I'm actually not in the Denver area. We're located up in Carbondale, Colorado, so we're about 30 minutes outside of Aspen. I'm actually from the Denver area, though. I grew up in Golden, so I come down there quite a bit and I'm very familiar with the area. So I've been at Footsteps for a little over 3 years now. I started as an intern and kind of worked my way through all the different avenues of marketing, from marketing services and like email side of things to coding and website development and design, and then landed in business development and sales, which I'm in now. So it's been really fun. We've been at it for almost 11 years now, and our team really specializes with small businesses and nonprofits. We operate fully in-house, so we don't have any like subcontractors or anything, and we have experts on staff for pretty much all areas, including like email, social advertising, paid advertising with Google, website development, and all that kind of stuff. So it's been pretty fun, and we've got to meet a lot of really cool people, and I really appreciate everyone's time today and hanging out. So like David mentioned, I'm going to talk a little bit about Google advertising and kind of everything that goes into it, because it is such a big world and such a big part of marketing. It's definitely probably our second most sought after services, but like behind website development. So it's very beneficial for a lot of companies, definitely small businesses, and like David mentioned, nonprofits, and they have a really cool Google ad grant program that's we'll talk about a little bit later. That's awesome to take advantage of. But kind of wanted to start out with just the basics, covering what it is, and maybe if you haven't dived into Google Ads much before, like where do you start? So obviously Google Ads is paid advertisements on Google, directed to your target audience to really promote your business. Where I usually tell and recommend clients of where to start is just really defining your goals. So if you don't know like who you're trying to target or what you want your audience to do, it's kind of hard to then establish ads. You're essentially just like throwing money at the wall and not really knowing what you're going to get out of it. So that's really the biggest part to Google advertising and having a successful campaign. And the second part of that kind of goes with your goals and defining your audience is it's really smart to just take a breath and take an audit of your current website. And with that, like your Google My Business listing. A lot of stuff with Google advertising and organic SEO comes with content on your website and how much of an established expert you are in your field. So those are the kind of two starting points that I usually like to tell clients about, and start with that, start with like the foundational basics. A little bit about what I'm going to cover today. I'm going to talk about organic SEO, the two kind of different types of paid advertising, which is display and search, and then the Google ad grants for nonprofits. And then another question I get a lot of times is like, how do I know when to use paid ads versus an organic SEO strategy? And that's a really good question to kind of sit down and think about, and really it kind of goes back to defining your goals of, If you need to see results right away and you have a substantial budget, then paid advertisement is the right way to go for you. If you want to grow sustainably over time and you have a smaller budget to work with, then it's really important to start with organic SEO. And kind of like the foundation for organic SEO that's really going to help propel you forward is actually your Google My Business listing. And I think over the pandemic, something that we really saw with clients and even just businesses in the Valley was the importance of having an updated Google My Business listing. I think a lot of times, like organizations or companies, it's the last thing on their mind to update, but it really should be the first. So the Google My Business listing, if you're not familiar, is just a free listing that connects pretty much Google search and maps to your website. I like to kind of describe it as a mini website for your business. So you can have your website link on there, your calling information. You can even have like appointment schedulers on there. You can add images, blog posts, reviews, like it's a whole integrated thing. And it's really good for your SEO. And it just kind of establishes your authority and also gives your customers a one-stop shop to find that immediate information. The importance that I've found, especially this last year, is businesses that have different operating hours now. And, you know, the importance is essentially if you wanted to like take some time out of your day to go down to a business and it says that they're open and you check and maybe you get there and they're closed on Mondays now because of the pandemic or something, that's definitely a frustrating step for your audience and for your customers. And you might lose business where it could have just been an easy update on your end and could have saved them the trouble. So the setup of the Google business account is super easy. It's all free through Google. If you have an account through them, it's easy to add, and you just essentially plug and play your contact information and your service areas and fill out all of the necessary fields, and then it'll populate a Google listing for you. One pro tip I have, especially if you have a lot of updates that you need to make monthly, is to just download the Google My Business app onto your phone. It makes updates just quick and easy, press of the button and you're done. So that was just kind of like a foundational piece I wanted to touch on, since sometimes it is overlooked, and just management of it isn't as daunting as you might think. Just kind of always something to keep in mind for your business. But that definitely plays into kind of the organic SEO side of things. So organic SEO, search engine optimization, is anything that you're doing on your website. Any of the work, content related, title tags, backlinks, that sort of thing, that's all going to play into your organic SEO ranking. And what that means essentially is just you're ranking on Google when companies are searching for you. And that's generally going to be below the paid advertising spots. But this is something that's very substantial. And if you have a great organic SEO presence, your rankings are going to be higher, and overall, you're just going to do so much better than your competition. So that's pretty much the main goal of any business, right? Is to be found immediately on top of search results. You want to be on that first page. Not a lot of people are really going to the second or third pages of Google. And so if you want to have that good foundation, like I've kind of been talking about, this is a great place to start. And so organic SEO is really ranking on like your keywords and how well those keywords are integrated into your website. So the title tags, for example, that's where you can plug in those keywords. Your Google My Business listing, you can update blogs on there. Content optimization is always a big thing that I like to share with clients and fellow businesses, is just always making sure that the content on your website is relevant to what you're actually either selling or whatever services that you're providing. And if you're consistent and strategic with this, over time, you're just going to continually outrank your competition, and you're going to just see those great results and be at the top of search results for your industry. And so what this kind of looks like in a monthly marketing plan is, like I've talked about, updating your website content. So this normally is in the form of a blog or applicable content on your services pages or product pages, whatever it is that your business might be selling. And so a lot of times the blog is the best place to go because it's easy content that you can update monthly. And what we're really trying to do with organic SEO is establish yourself as authority in your industry. So Google basically wants to know that what you are selling, what your services are, that you're the leader in that and you know what you're talking about, because they don't want to promote your business to their audience if you're not actually legit. And so the more that you can prove that you have authority and you're an expert, the more you're going to get points from Google and the higher you're going to rank. And so a lot of that comes with cross-posting your information and your marketing strategies across all different types of channels. So that essentially could look like, you post a blog per month on your website, and then you add that blog into your monthly newsletter, and then you have that post on your Facebook channel, and then you also upload it to your Google My Business listing. All of that works together on Google to really increase your rankings. And it really just shows not only Google, but also your audience that you care to share this information. You want to get this out. You're the leader, you're the expert, you know what you're talking about. And it really just rounds out your marketing and kind of establishes that brand awareness of where users are just seeing this information over and over again. Another kind of side of organic SEO that not a lot of people dive into, because it is sometimes a little tricky, is generating backlinks on directory listings. And a lot of times companies will pay marketing firms or agencies to do this for them, or there's like a ton of companies out there that will do this. But essentially it's saying that you can put your website on any directory listing out there. So whatever apps or web pages that people find information on that they're using, you can essentially pay money to have them put your URL on there to direct them back to your website. This can sometimes get a little tricky. And one thing I do warn a lot of people about is some companies try and take advantage of businesses, which, shocker, that never happens in the business world, right? But one thing that we touch on is there's a difference between follow links and no follow links. And a lot of companies will generate your directory listings and show you them, but they'll have them set as no follow links. And that's essentially a code telling Google not to track it, not to count it. So where it looks like maybe you have all these directory listings, it's not actually counting for anything. So I'd always just like to make people aware, if they're doing that and if they're paying for that service, to always check that, make sure it's follow links and make sure it's actually working in your favor. And just kind of what I've been preaching a little bit is just showing that you're the expert. That's really what it boils down to, is that you know what you're talking about. You're there for your customers, and you're really just trying to establish this base to propel yourself forward. And I always like to kind of talk about expectations for these things, right? Because you can say this is how you do it, but what are the things that you should be looking for? What should you expect to see from these campaigns? And so with organic SEO, it is one of those that you want to really constantly be doing. You don't really want to just do it for a couple months and then have it be over. We do have campaigns where we push really hard, and those campaigns we would run for like 6 months. And that's generally a good amount of time. It usually takes 2 to 3 months to see those results happen. If you are ranking low in a certain keyword space, you want to boost that. It does take a little bit of time for Google to kind of establish that trust and move you up in rankings. And so having those clear expectations going into it and knowing that it's not just a quick fix is something that's really important, so that you don't get kind of nervous or thinking you're not doing it right. It's just one of those things that you have to keep at. And kind of an analogy I like to share with people is SEO and building your organic reach is sort of like going to the gym. So you definitely don't get in shape overnight. You don't go one time and you're fit. It's kind of the same with organic SEO. You have to keep going month after month and keep showing up and keep posting that content. And if you stop, it's kind of also like going to the gym, where you would lose progress, seeing how far you made it there. Your organic results may drop after a while if you just completely shut off all of the work that you were doing. So that was kind of a little bit on the organic side, and now I'm going to talk a little bit more about the paid advertising and the different types and kind of budgeting and best practices and all that stuff. So I'm going to dive a little bit into the search and display, which is going to be for more small businesses and corporations that are paying. And then I'll talk a little bit about the ad grants for nonprofits. So search advertising is one area of Google Ads. These are obviously paid ads you can target a specific audience with. The search ads are all text-based, so there's no visuals with search ads, but they do have consistent 3 components, which are going to be your headline, which is essentially kind of like your title, your display URL, so wherever you want to direct your user to go on your website, and then your description. So that's usually about 1 to 2 sentences describing what your ad is about. And so the benefit of these ads over display or organic is that you can meet your audience where they are, and it puts you above the organic competition. So if you're Googling something and you see those top 3 spots are usually the headline is bold and there's the little icon on the side that says ad. This is that ad space. This is like prime real estate in the ad world. And this is essentially best for when you know people are searching for you and you need to kind of appear to them right away. You want to get ahead of that organic competition. And it really just promotes more visibility and more traffic for you. A lot of times when people are searching, they're going to click on those first 3. And so that's really just a higher chance, a higher intent of them coming to your website and making a purchase or signing up for your service or giving you a call. So you're really targeting your highly interested prospects. And search analytic or search advertising gives you a little bit more detailed analytics, like on your demographic and your audience and who you should really be targeting. One thing to note about search ads is how Google kind of ranks you or how your ads appear really just depends on your bid and the quality score. So your bid is essentially how much money you want to put towards it per month, like your max amount budget, and then the quality score of kind of like what your ads have been like in the past, your website, like all of that stuff kind of plays together, and then Google puts it in its algorithm and your ads will appear based on those few requirements. And so the expectations for search ads, kind of similar to organic SEO. It's not a silver bullet. It's not a one thing fixes everything. It's sort of like a foundational element for your marketing. And so with search ads, you do have to pay to play. They're usually a little bit higher cost than display ads or organic. The average cost per click that we've seen kind of across the board is around $2. We've seen around 2 to 3 lately. And so that's just saying every cost or every click someone makes, you're paying around $2 for that. So a budget for that is generally higher, like $500 to $1,000 a month is what we usually see. But on the flip side of that is your conversion rate is going to be a lot higher. So conversion rate, as we track, is just your user took the action on your website. So whatever that goal was that you defined, if you want someone to give you a call, if you want someone to purchase a product, if you want them to sign up a form for services, that's your conversion rate. So while you may be paying more for search ads, the conversion rate of someone actually going through and buying something from you is a lot higher. The reason for this is because you're connected with people who are actively searching for what you're providing. So you have a higher chance of them taking the action on your website. For example, we do some search advertising for a local construction company in Carbondale, and they're all like custom home builders. And so as you can see here on the right, the ad is all text-based, like I said. So you have the URL. You can now add like phone numbers to these too, if you want it to be a little bit more built out. And if that's like the goal that you want is for people to call, you can have that on there. The title and then the description. And there's also some like add-on features, like if you have a really high standing and ranking with Google, you can sort of get added benefits. So you can have different links like our process, start your build today. Those just link back to the website. And so it's just added benefit and a little bit more robust advertising so people can kind of get a whole sense of who you are and get to your website faster. So that's a little bit about search. The other side of advertising is going to be display advertising. Display advertising is going to be a little bit more visual. This is probably what you're familiar with if you are on like CNN or a blog and there's advertisements on the side and they're videos or banner ads or images. These are through the Google Display Network. And so what that is essentially Google has access to like thousands of web pages from like CNN to Fox News to anything you're like blog related, that kind of stuff. And so with that access is where your ads are going to be placed. Like I mentioned, these are usually banner, image ads, or you can even do text ads, similar to the search advertising. The benefit of this advertising as opposed to search is really for like building brand awareness. It gives you the opportunity to promote your business to people who may not know about it before or may not know that they need you. And so this is kind of great if you're just starting out, or if you kind of don't really have like a long sales cycle, and you can kind of just like let the ads play and do the work for you and establish that brand awareness with your audience. And so there's generally around 3 types of ads with display advertising that you can run. One is going to be site placement. So that's just essentially saying that you can choose which websites your ads will run on. So you can make a list of your top choices. You don't have to deal with ads being shown on irrelevant websites, that sort of thing. There's also contextual, which is going to be pretty much letting Google do for you and putting your ads on websites that they see relevant to you. So for example, this could be maybe you sell dog food. That's your company. You have like great dog food, and you want to run ads. Like Google's most likely going to put your ad on a dog adoption website, because obviously if you get a new dog, you're going to have to buy dog food. And then the third, and probably the most popular, it's what we work with a lot of our clients, is remarketing. And remarketing is definitely huge in the marketing world today. Like Facebook has their Facebook Pixel, which essentially tracks people around the website and shows ads to them. But what it really means is you're just targeting customers who have come to your website before, or maybe a landing page, and they left without taking an action. So they didn't call you, they didn't fill out a form, they didn't even navigate to the contact page, but they were still interested. And so you want to capture that audience, and maybe it wasn't the right time for them. Maybe they need a little bit more persuasion. So essentially what remarketing does is it tags their IP address and it follows them around the internet. So let's say I went and looked at Footsteps Marketing's website, and then I didn't do anything and I left and I went to CNN.com and I was reading some news. Boom, there's a banner for Footsteps Marketing, and maybe we're promoting like email marketing at that time. And so that might be something on the ad. And it's really just to establish that brand awareness and like keep your business top of mind to people, so that maybe later on, if I need email marketing help, I'll be like, oh, who was that company that I saw the ads for? Footsteps. I'm going to go back to their website and hopefully take an action. So the expectations with display advertising really lies in the fact that you're targeting like the right user at the right time on the right website. This really helps to build brand awareness, like I've been talking about, and just reminding users of your business, and touching base with them once they've left. So the average cost per click for these is definitely a lot lower than search. This is one that is pretty popular with a lot of our clients, as they don't have to have high budgets to make a big impact. So it's around 50 cents. Sometimes it can, definitely get higher depending on the keyword space. And the average conversion rate is significantly lower. It's around 50% as well. But like I talked about, this is more for foundational building. This is not really trying to sell that quick product. This is more for you to establish yourself and keep people coming back and interested. Display advertising is something that we actually run a lot in tandem with organic SEO. The two work really well together. As you're kind of building your foundation on the organic side, if you run smaller display campaigns, it's just all working together to build your brand and establish that ranking and kind of moving you up the ladder on Google. And kind of like, just to keep in mind what I mentioned of a longer sales cycle. So like I said, this isn't something that you're trying to push right away. So maybe this is, the best way to describe it is purchasing like a new car or a new software system, something that people aren't trying to make a decision on right away. They want to do the research, they want to take the time. So kind of after going through that, which is better and when do you use it? So a lot of times when you're using search ads, that's when you want to capture those high quality leads. You're trying to cater to a local audience most of the time, and you have a shorter sales cycle, or you're trying to promote like emergency services. So plumbers, tow trucks, veterinarians, those are great because, it's 7 p.m. on a Friday, your pipes burst, you go to Google, plumber services, if you have that ad in that top space, more than likely the person's going to just click it and call you because they don't really want to look around. They just want someone who's going to help them immediately. And search ads are obviously better if you have a larger budget because they are a little bit pricier to take advantage of. Display ads on the other side are great if you have a product or service that's visually appealing. So if you sell apparel, if you're in like tourism, adventure, entertainment, travel, all that kind of stuff, that's great for display ads. You have a little bit of a longer sales cycle, or you might have like a niche market. Display ads are great for that. And like I've just been mentioning, building brand awareness is the big key for display ads. And really it's where you're creating the demand for your product instead of capturing the people who are already searching for it. So now we kind of went through a little bit of the paid advertising for businesses. I kind of want to talk about Google Ad Grants. It's a really cool program for nonprofits, and I think it's really kind of starting to pick up in popularity and awareness. I think over the past couple of years, it wasn't something that a lot of people knew about. And so Google Ad Grants is obviously for nonprofits. They have to have a 501c3 status and they have to be based in the US. And how it works is essentially you go through the verification process through Google. They also work with a third party called TechSoup. And all that they're doing is just making sure that you are who you say you are and you're a real live nonprofit. There is requirements for what you need to have on your website, and it has to be pretty detailed in kind of like sharing what your mission is and what you're doing and all that kind of stuff. Google does have a very documented list of requirements though, and it's very easy to make sure you kind of have everything dialed in. But essentially once you're verified, Google then awards you upwards of $10,000 in advertising per month, which is obviously fantastic for nonprofits because they don't normally have a high budget to work with, but they are, traditionally doing great things for communities and they're really trying to help out. And so it's really awesome to be able to share the story and not have them break the bank. So I kind of just wanted to give a client example of how it actually works. So we've been working with Loveland Habitat for Humanity for a little over 2 years now. And we started out with the ad grants for them. And when we started, it was definitely like a little rocky. We learned a lot working with this client, and a lot of the hurdles that we found were actually just content updates to the website. And so that was one thing I wanted to share is if you have been working with ad grants or maybe you want to start, but you're not really making or getting a big benefit from ad grants, sometimes it just has to do with your website and making sure that you have the right pieces in play. But so when we started with them, we really were seeing like 200 to 500 a month. It wasn't that big of a spend. We were kind of like, okay, how do we make this work better? And now that we've kind of been in it for a while, we are seeing around like 12 to 1400 a month coming through, and that's just like free ad money for them. So it's been awesome. We've been seeing like just so much awareness building around them, and a lot of their events and programs have just taken off through this, and volunteerism is at an all-time high and all that. It's just been fantastic to see. But one thing that we learned through this process in the Google Ad Grants is just like how they allocate the money. And so while they say that they'll award maybe up to $10,000, a lot of times you're not going to get that full 10,000. And honestly, you don't really need the full 10,000. So what they base it off of is your location and your demographics and kind of like your audience and your ads. And so for Loveland, they're not really trying to target a huge area. They're really just targeting local and, Loveland, Fort Collins, Boulder area. They want people who can volunteer and who can donate stuff. They're not trying to be big. So Google's not going to waste their money, obviously, giving them $10,000 because they're not going to use it. And so I think a lot of times people get hesitant or think that maybe they're not doing a good job because they're not receiving that full amount of money. But really, it just is dependent on the client and on your business or your organization. On the flip side of that, we did work with Habitat Colorado, the whole Colorado chapter, and obviously they have a wider reach. They're, even going to other states. And so for that specific organization, we actually were able to spend the full 10,000, like we were awarded it and we were able to use it. So it definitely can happen, but it doesn't happen every time. And that's kind of like the wrap up on the Google Ad Grants. It's kind of similar to the other advertisements where you're still going to set up the ads the same. You're going to have kind of the same structure with the display ads, as you can kind of see here, the URL, the title, and then the description. But the only difference is that you don't have to actually pay for the ad budget, which is great. So speaking of budgeting, just kind of moving forward into the whole scheme of Google advertisements, obviously budgeting is a huge part of it. You don't want to waste your money just having ads that aren't working for you. And so you really want to take a deep dive into what the cost is of your keyword space and your industry and the geographic location, the quality of your ads, like all of that goes into play. I will say I hate keyword strategy. It's not my favorite thing to do, but it is so helpful. And if your keyword space is really expensive, like if you kind of have $3 a click and maybe your competition is really high where you're really not going to get a lot of action, it doesn't really make sense to run that kind of ad campaign. It's really important to look at that before you just jump into it. Otherwise, you're just going to spend money and not make anything back. So when we're strategizing with clients and we're talking about how much they should really be putting into Google, we always like to ask the question, like, is the cost of your ads worth it? Like, are you going to be making enough on closing a deal or selling a product to justify what you're spending on your ads? And if the answer is yes, then by all means, like, it's very beneficial. It's going to, just propel leads forward for you. But if it's not, and you're not going to make, if you're spending $700 a month in ads, but maybe you only make 700 or you make 500 on selling your products, then it doesn't make sense for your business. And so those are just some things to kind of keep in mind when you're going through your strategies and kind of defining your budget of what you're trying to accomplish. And the other part of the strategy with budgeting is just really making sure that your ads are intentional and strategic and they're targeting the right people and you're hitting them at the right time and you're making it easy for them to make an action with you. So creating that space on your website, that's a very clear call to action, like call us today, contact us today, whatever that may be, just making sure that you make it easy for your clients and your audience, because that's all that they really care about. People are kind of lazy when it comes to the internet, and if they can't find the answer right away, then they're going to move on. So that kind of goes into more just like best practices and kind of rounding this whole speech out about Google Ads, if you will. But kind of what I said from the beginning is just always clearly define your goals and your audience before you start really any campaign for marketing. This is the same for email or social media. Like if you don't know what you want out of these campaigns and who you're trying to target, then you're not going to be successful in those campaigns. With Google advertising specifically, the keyword research is like the number one thing that you can do. And like I just said, I absolutely hate it. It's not fun, I will admit, but it is very beneficial for you. And if you put in the time up front to kind of do that research and do that legwork, it's going to benefit you so much more in the long run, because you're going to know what you're targeting. You're going to receive more clicks. You're going to get more action on those ads, as opposed to just kind of throwing stuff at the wall and hoping that it works and it's not resonating with your target audience. So when you're creating your ads, obviously you want to keep those keywords in mind. And the same goes for your content on your website. Google and your users are really going to want to see that your website's backing up what your ads are saying. So just having that clear content on there and that intentional strategic information, just showing that you're the expert is just the best way that you can be successful with your ads and optimizing, obviously. And then last but not least is just, analyzing those reports every month. And don't be afraid to re-strategize. We re-strategize all the time with clients' ads. Even halfway through the month, if we see an ad isn't really performing that well, we'll switch it up and we'll try something different. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but that's kind of the fun part of this whole thing is you can't really go wrong. Like you can try it and see if it works. And if it does, just keep going with it. But re-strategizing will just really help narrow your audience and really just make everything better over time. So that was kind of like the quick rundown of Google Ads.